Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here, along with Monster V's for what was supposed to be.
What if you were closer to your mic?
I am over a foot from my mic.
Well, whatever you just did just blew it the fuck out.
It's just too sensitive.
Yeah. Your harsh tones.
I am the normal intensity. It's just being weak. Man up, microphone.
Fair enough.
So we're supposed to be doing a State of the Union, but apparently the State of the Union is not today and has also not been scheduled, which is a break in tradition for like many presidents going back.
Which means I am from a different universe because it must be the Mandela effect. That's the only thing that explains. I know for certain that I read articles that the State of the Union was today. I even read articles today that the State of the Union was today. And I remember Tucker Carlson last week talking about the State of the Union being this week. So I am, I guess, hopefully the audience here is a little bit better than the audience from my last universe, but I'm here now.
I'm fairly sure you heard that because Biden says he was going to have his State of the Union, his joint,
session of Congress.
Session of Congress in February. This is the last week of February. It would have to be, if he's telling the truth, this week. However, and that's why this, like, the Wikipedia page says that it's happening on a date to be determined with a certain length, and it says February. It's going to be happening in sometime during February because they expected this event to happen, just like everyone else, because presidents going back for a long time have had their State of the Union speeches in February, and Biden said he was going to do it this month. So you probably heard them talking about saying it's going to be next week because it'd be the only week it could be.
Yeah, like there is no more weeks in February. Sunday is the last day of February. So, while I might be either insane, more likely I'm just from the universe where I'm right. That's usually what happens. It is much more crazy that Biden's not having a State of the Union in February. There's no reason why he shouldn't be able to have a State of the Union in February.
Unless he's dead.
Yes.
Possible.
Or lazy. I did find it, I had been thinking all day that I must be crazy that there's a State of the Union tonight because I couldn't imagine Joe Biden after 9 p.m. speaking for an hour. That was the most unbelievable part, which apparently there's a reason why that was unbelievable because it's not happening.
Right. I think that they're probably having some trouble with the hologram technology.
Yeah, the puppeteering.
Exactly. I made a bet with Fox here that he might be dead, and that instead of Biden coming out when they do eventually schedule it, it's just going to be Kamala in a white dude wig and suit.
That'd be cultural appropriation.
But it's okay when she does it.
Oh, okay. Maybe Joe Biden's trying to be less white by dying.
Exactly. Just following through with the great god Coca-Cola and their edicts.
So, while tonight was going to be a very easy watch-along at us commentate, we're going to totally improv the whole thing because there is no State of the Union tonight.
Notes? There's no notes.
No.
We just have some,
Where we're going, we don't need notes.
We do, however, have a topical story that got us both very heated that should be easy to talk about.
Yeah,
and
there was lots of cursing this afternoon on our lunch hours over this story.
There's people walking by my car with me just yelling into my phone. While Fox is also yelling simultaneously into his phone. We're not just have this yelling match about Naomi fucking Wolf.
All right, let's see if we can recapture the Wolf energy.
I am ashamed that she has Wolf in her name. We do not claim her. It's not part of the pack.
It's a we. I'm a fox. All right. So what did Naomi Wolf say? So what was that?
Right? It was a baby.
Oh God! What did you step on it?
I did not step on it.
It sounded like it was stepped on.
Did not step on any babies yet.
It sounded like you stepped on it. Just saying. All right. So Naomi Wolf is she was an advisor in the Clinton administration, I think. She wrote some books. She supposedly invented third wave feminism, whatever the fuck that is. She is a yappy bitch, from what I've gathered. She likes to talk. And she is recently re-famous, not for any of her accomplishments in life, which were few and far between. But she's recently famous for a tweet that she made right after the election, and I think December she made the tweet, where she said that if she had known that Joe Biden was for lockdowns, which lockdowns have terrible consequences and don't work, she would have never voted for him. That was her tweet. And everybody was like, huh. You didn't know Joe Biden was for lockdowns.
No, dude. She said that on November 8th.
Oh my God.
Like right after the election.
Do you have a copy of the tweet that you can send me?
Yes, I do. And also an article that has it contained in it. So I'll send it to you.
Yeah, send that to me. We'll make some visual aids.
So this person, yes, she was an advisor in the Clinton admin, and she has advocated for all the crazy policies that Biden is for. She has advocated for people to vote for Biden, and then has come out now after having helped him get elected and is saying, oh, isn't it terrible that we elected this tyrant, when she's been pushing, like, the policies she's advocated for are just as tyrannical. She's realized, COVID lockdowns, hey, that might affect me. This might have a negative effect on my life. So she only starts caring about tyranny when it starts affecting her. It's not because she has any kind of principles or brain cells. She still advocates complete lunacy and idiocy. She still is a third wave feminist who wants to tear down our society. She only starts caring when it disadvantages her.
Well, she invented third wave feminism, which requires no brain cells. If you had any brain cells, it would not be possible to conceive of third wave feminism.
Yeah. Anyways, let's hear some of her big brain ideas that she came up with. Like a couple days after the election, she realized, maybe I should look into this guy I was voting for.
Yeah, so she had an interview with Tucker Carlson last night, and one of the reasons why Dyer and I are so fired up, if you've been following us for at least a year now, you probably saw me towards the end of the summer. I did a big kind of 2.5 hour long expose going through what the problems with the walkaways are. So walkaways are former Democrats, leftists who, as the Democrats and leftists turn to eat themselves, you have all these people who were on the left, but now they're getting hunted by the left. So they're being hunted by their own. And all of a sudden, they're conservative, or they're at least on the right, and they want to fight against leftism, even though they were the ones that helped build the monster that was ultimately coming for them and for us. And we've been sitting here the whole time, some on the right for decades saying, hey, this crazy thing you guys are doing, that's going to lead to, all the stuff that we're seeing now, this academic Marxism, critical theory, the feminism stuff, like that's not going to lead you anywhere good. That's going to lead you to, it's going to lead you to all the stuff that we're seeing now. And a lot of people on the right have been warning about that for literally decades.
She's one of the people who would look at a homeless white man on the street with nothing and say he's privileged and he's part of the problem in the society.
Yeah. So now that she's gotten out of it, and we've seen this. What I went through over the summer was with a lot of examples of people that were former leftists that are now, they've woken up and they think they're so fucking smart for having woken up, and then now that they're out, they want people on the right to listen to them. They want to talk more. After having a full lifetime of awful ideas that created leviathans that turned on them and have been coming after us on the right for the whole time.
All the people they have victimized along the way.
Yes. Now all of a sudden they realize the error of their ways and they want to come over to our side, but they don't just want to come over to our side. They want to be leaders on our side. They want to talk. They want you to listen. They still want control. And like Dyer said, it's not about a principled position. It's about they lost the ability to be in control on the left because the left is turning on them. So it's convenient for them to try to come back to the right and see what they can do over here. And again, I went through this giant thing, which maybe we'll try and find that episode and maybe repost it, because it was a really good episode that I did. Just saying. But we see this with the walkaways all the time. There's one organization in particular is actually called Walkaway, the Walkaway campaign, which is a campaign of Democrats that have realized the Democrat Party is fucking insane, and they wanted to make their own lobbying organization to help conservatives figure out how to do stuff better. We don't need to hear what they're saying. If you are on the left and you're walking away, as I said at the time back then, I still maintain the same position, is, happy you stopped building the Leviathan that's trying to eat me. I appreciate you having the bare minimum of a brain cell to stop doing that. It's not necessarily admirable that you did that. In my opinion, walking away is the barest minimum that you could possibly do. But now that you've walked away, over there's a chair. I would like you to sit down, shut the fuck up, and listen to the people on the right who have had the wisdom of thinking about, talking about, reading, listening, conservative philosophy for decades. Whereas you, people like Naomi, people like the guy that leads the Walkaway campaign, people like a Tim Pool, have only been on outside the left for a couple of days to a couple of years. Naomi, apparently, within the last 2 months. And people like that, they don't have the requisite wisdom to speak with any kind of authority, but they desperately want to have authority because guess what? People on the left are authoritarians. But let's, I'll let Dyer speak in a second here. I know it is your show. But after that, we'll watch this interview that Naomi had with Tucker, and in my opinion, Tucker was far too cordial with her. But being that Tucker has to, he's not that kind of a show, so I kind of he's a little bit forgiven. But we will attack her where Tucker failed to do so.
Yeah, it's kind of like having two opposing armies, and the enemy general who has been directing attacks against you and has led to the death and destruction of your people on your side suddenly has a change of heart because their own army throws them out, and then they come back over to your side and says, you know what, I'm gonna lead you guys to victory. Like, no, fucking get in the back. You've been leading them against us. You're not. We're not going to follow you.
Well, no, it's like it'd be like in World War II. Like one of the ways that the Germans were able to subvert a lot of the European countries was that they had people on the inside, people that were selling out their own country. And then when the Allies started getting the upper hand, all of a sudden, all of those traitors were like, no, wait a second, we were with you the whole time. And it was like, no. Like, there's the wall.
Yeah. The problem is, they might now be on the right side, right? But their reasons for being on the right side is because of self-interest, not because they have an intellectual, ideological, principled foundation for those opinions. They are only holding those opinions in as far as they are benefiting them. Tim Pool, when he was not wealthy, advocated for the social programs that would take from the rich and give to the poor, and would create equity programs which are inherently tyrannical and discourage capitalism,
and he ended up getting rich off of being a somebody working through nonprofits, eventually getting into mainstream media, and
he built up mainstream media companies and activist groups that actively work against conservative principles. And now that he's become wealthy, he now advocates for those conservative principles only as far as they protect the rights he wants for himself.
Yeah, now that he's gotten wealthy off of building all of these machines, destroying the country. Not that it's him alone, but he's same thing with Naomi, not her alone, but they helped put onto the pyre the Constitution. They helped light that thing on fire. All of them had their own little hand in doing it. I didn't do that the last 10 years. The last 10 years, through college, I was in VP of College Republicans. I was part of the Libertarian Group, Young America's Foundation. I brought in all kinds of big name speakers to my university. I went to my university and advocated for my groups and got money out of them to stop spending money on liberal speakers and to spend some money on the speakers I wanted to bring in. Always talking with my friends and family, conservative values, consuming conservative, commentary and culture and news, and then eventually getting with Direwolf and doing this show. That's what I've been doing the last 10 years. Tim, up until the last 3 years, the 7 years prior to the last 3 years, he was building the liberal Leviathan that I had been fighting against my whole life.
Right.
And then all of a sudden now, and he made a lot of money doing that. Same thing with Naomi. Naomi made a lot of money being a feminist, not producing any products, just she made a lot of money advocating for leftist policies. She got rich with it, and now she can escape the hell that she has wrought on the rest of us. Same thing with Tim. Tim's sitting there being like, oh, well, I don't know why everybody doesn't just buy a 100-acre plot and 300 guns and all this stuff for the last year. I don't understand why people don't do that. Well, I don't know, Tim. Maybe because I didn't make $1 million selling out my country.
Yeah. And they want to be the thought leaders of the conservative movement now, but should we listen to the people who were Steven Crowder or Tucker Carlson's or the Hannitys who've been conservative, not always right, but they've been conservative and pushing conservative principles for their entire lives or the majority of their adult lives? Should we be listening to them, or should we listen to the guy who's been a conservative for 3 years and is only doing so to protect his own wealth?
Or the girl who has realized that the left is bad in the last 2 months. Let's watch this. Let's watch this interview here. We can we'll pause frequently. It may take us another hour to get through this 6 minutes.
Not afraid to speak up is Naomi Wolf, who is undoubtedly losing friends by appearing on the show tonight. She's the author of The End of America, Letter of Warning to a Young Patriot, and the CEO.
I'll point out that Naomi is part of the group that has advocated that people that go on conservative programs should be unfriended and deplatformed and unpersoned by their family. So now she is getting Direwolf can't hear the audio because he's a dork and he never asked me to share the.
I just did.
I know. Hold on a second. Well, I'll replay the last 9 seconds for you.
Thanks.
Only because I care.
Not afraid to speak up is Naomi Wolf, who is undoubtedly losing friends by appearing on the show tonight. She's the.
So again, like I said, I want to point out that maybe she's losing friends, but why is she losing friends? Because the left has a cancel culture. Why does the left have a cancel culture? Well, because people like Naomi Wolf have been building that for. Again, she's been in it for about 20 years. Think about what you did the last decade. And when you see these walkaways, think about what they were doing the last decade versus what you were doing the last decade.
The reason why they're ditching her over her having these opinions is not because they were her friends or anyone's friends. It's because she's leaving the cult.
Yeah.
And not that she's actually lost the mindset of the cult, because she's just barely stepping out. But as soon as you go against the cult, you are their enemy.
Yes.
The author of The End of America, Letter of Warning to a Young Patriot, and the CEO of Daily Clout. She joins us tonight. Naomi Wolf, I appreciate your coming on.
She's no patriot, and she has no standing to write a book about opposing tyranny in America
Well, she hasn't gotten to that part. She will get to that, but we'll save that for when she actually explains what her book's about.
Fuck.
I know you know what this video is about, but don't do that until it gets to where it's at.
I never thought I would be talking to you except in a debate format. I'm sure we disagree on an awful lot. But on this, I was struck by the bravery it must have taken you to write it. I'm sure you lost friends over it.
Bravery.
Yeah, so this is stuff that we've gone over before. It's not brave and it's not admirable to walk away from the left. It is the barest minimum that you can do. Again, not brave, not admirable. It is the bare minimum. When you have been advocating for a system that is trying to overthrow our government, and I don't think I need to defend that position. If you want to hear my evidence for that position, see literally our entire catalog. But when you've been doing that, stopping the undermining of our nation, that isn't admirable to stop doing that. It is the least you could do.
Yes. When you refrain from doing an evil act, all you're doing is not doing the evil act. You're not doing something good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not laudable because you refuse to do something wrong.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you don't get a cookie for doing what the rest of us have been. Again, I've not been doing that for the last 10 years. I longer than that, but I consider the last 10 years as kind of my actual political maturity. But I haven't gotten any cookies for not trying to destroy the country for the last 10 years. She realizes 2 months ago, wow, oh fuck, I've been destroying the country for 20 years. I should probably stop doing that. And she gets a 6-minute segment on Tucker Carlson.
we need to stop defining like innocuous things or normal things as being brave, right? My line for what is actual bravery is kind of high. It should be for you. But
yeah,
refusing...
Dyer, did you execute any of your men today?
Not today.
Oh wow, you're oh man, claps. Like you get a cookie. Like good job. Like you're a fucking hero, Dyer. Like you're so good, man. That's so admirable. I'm like very proud of you. You're like such a good moral character. Like for doing that. Like definitely a good leader for not having.
I was walking down the street and I didn't shoot someone to death. This homeless guy on the street. I didn't kill him. You guys should praise me. I should get a fucking medal.
Voracious Blackston put it perfectly. Much stunning, great brave. Good job, Dyer. Good job.
Thank you. I refuse to commit a violent crime. Thus, I should be praised.
Yes.
For doing this, tell us why you're doing this and why you wrote that.
Well, it's not just first of all, thank you, Tucker. I'm really happy to be talking to you. It's not just that one tweet. I've been writing pretty much every day for months and months about what I see as...
Dyer and I alone have been talking for years and years. And again, and go down the list of all the other conservatives who've been doing it for decades and decades. Crowder, Wilkow, Hannity, Glenn Beck, I already said Wilkow, Mark Levin, Rush Limbaugh. How hated is he? And as crass as he may have been over the last 30 years, where was the lie in a lot of his bigger points?
Yeah. Hey, Shaman King says they want a prize for basic decency. Yeah, they want to be praised as a hero for not being a cunt for 5 minutes.
Yes, exactly.
The terrible crisis that we're in, that we have to recognize under the guise of a real medical pandemic. We're really moving into a coup situation, a police state situation, and that's not a partisan thing. That, as you say, that transcends everything you and I might agree.
So we need to realize this. So she from the left is saying, well, I think a lot of people don't realize that they've been using the pandemic for authoritarian purposes just as an excuse. And I think that we're heading into a police state. Oh really? Do you? Because again, Dyer and I have been talking about that. A lot of people on the right have been talking about that for a long time. She's about to go, and I know I'm going to skip ahead pages just like I told Dyer not to. I control the video, though, so I get to do whatever I want.
You control the timeline, so you're always right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm from the universe where I'm right. No, so she's about to talk about how she didn't realize that the left was going to use this as such an authoritarian means. And it was like, did you not see, like, Joe Biden aside, nobody knows what Joe Biden's going to do. We can guess what he's going to do. But, like, the left, are you kidding me? Did you not see New York, Michigan, California, all the lefty areas, Portland, Oregon?
Where was she when New York was killing off the elderly and destroying small businesses? Where were you calling it out then?
How crazy is the story with Cuomo? I keep hearing about how they're going to investigate him now for this, and like they're finding more people that were killed in the nursing homes, and like it's being uncovered that they're. I keep hearing this, and I keep thinking like, is this like an old story? Am I playing an old episode of something? Am I playing like a Crowder episode from May? Like what? Because I'm hearing all this stuff, and it's coming up as, and it is a big deal. It is big news that they're actually going to finally hold somebody fucking accountable for that, what happened in New York. But
maybe
all of that stuff, like, we were talking about that more than a half a year ago, more than 6 months ago.
You know what you didn't hear, Fox? I didn't hear Naomi Wolf saying anything about what happened in New York.
I didn't. Yeah, no, she didn't say anything about the lockdowns in New York.
Was it Minnesota? No, Michigan. Sorry,
Michigan. Oh yeah. So just hearing this Andrew Cuomo story, just kind of as an aside though, it keeps baffling my mind, because every time I hear an update on it, I keep thinking like, wait a second, like, is this a recent clip, or did I like slip into like somebody's like playlist that's got old episodes or something on it? Because all of this stuff that is suddenly brand new news, like just like Naomi, like it's news to her that the left likes lockdowns. Like it's brand new news to her. And I was like, I knew that 13 months ago. It's new news to the left that over the summer, Andrew Cuomo murdered 15,000 old people. Michigan's got 26,000. Pennsylvania's got somewhere up in the 5 digits. All of a sudden, this is big news to the left. But I keep hearing it. It's like, this isn't big new news. This was a story 6 months ago, 12 months ago, and people got deplatformed for it. We got told that we were anti-science. We got told if we talked about it too much, we were going to lose our channel, that we'd be unpersoned, that I was basically committing hate crimes by, I was being a super spreader. I was, the left was calling Trump supporters a suicide cult because we were trying to spread the virus. I got called murderer by the left.
Literally got called a Nazi by the governor of Michigan.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, now all of a sudden it's big news.
Right. Also, I want to point out, and this is really getting at me, the definition of pandemic is a disease that is prevalent all around the world. You don't need to say medical pandemic. That's stupid.
Did she say medical panda?
She did.
I want to rewind it a little bit. That's crazy. Also, while we're doing this, I'll just go find it afterwards. But remind me, I want to go find the clip of Joe Biden. If we didn't watch him during since we didn't get to watch him during the State of the Union, why don't we watch him when he was speaking to the EU the other day?
And you talked about the Nigerians, right? You definitely brought up the Nigerians.
Something like that.
Unless I misheard it somehow.
Stay tuned. We will have a video for you.
We're really moving into a coup situation, a police state situation, and that's not a partisan thing. That a real medical pandemic.
Yeah, what would be?
What the fuck?
What is a medical pandemic? Like, what would be?
There's
like, what would be the
thing as?
What would be the alternative?
There's no other kind.
Like
all pandemics are of a disease, and you don't need to put medical in front of pandemic to clarify that you're talking about a disease type of pandemic, because that is what the meaning. Like, anytime you put if you want to modify the word pandemic, you're modifying it to being something that's not a disease.
I bet you she goes to the ATM machine and puts in her PIN number. Psychological pandemic. I don't know. I mean, maybe a I think it's implied that it's a medical pandemic, and I think that if you want to, it's okay to modify it. Like if you wanted to say that it was like a psychological pandemic, or I don't know,
Right.
like if you were using it as like a marketing term for like something, like I don't know, it's like a Coke pandemic, or it's a bad.
Well, yeah, Shaman King is actually demonstrating what I was talking about. Like, pandemic by itself is medical. If you then want to alter the word by putting another word in front of it, then you are turning it into something else. But medical, which is just implying that it's a disease, is unnecessary because it already means that. I'm surprised you didn't pick up on that. It bothered me as soon as I heard it. It's the second time today. There was someone on the news who said the same thing. Like, stop calling it that. Anyways, go on, move on.
Remember, Dyer, they went to college. They're very smart. They know words, and they know all the SAT words. They're very, very smart, Dyer. Don't forget that.
I have a personal story about this topic. I'll tell you later.
Really moving into a coup situation, a police state situation, and that's not a partisan thing. That, as you say, that transcends everything you and I might.
The coup already happened.
Well, and so here she is talking about coups and stuff like that, and it's like, we kind of talked about that a little while ago, or at least this kind of takeover where there's this weird, the police will go after you for.
That coup?
What's that?
Who enabled that coup? Who did it? Who allowed it to happen? Who enabled those politicians to have that coup? People like her.
Yes. They led the groundwork. And again, I think, again, I'm not going to tell you, no, don't come to our side, or don't stop carrying water for the left. But like, when you've been greasing the skids and the missile is going down the rails, and you say, "Oh, nope, I'm not involved anymore." Like, this would be like a Nazi defector 3 days before Hitler shot himself, where it's like, "Oh, like I wasn't involved anymore. I defected. I'm on your side now." It's like, I don't know what kind of accent that was.
She sets the house on fire and then complains about the fire.
Yeah, and she's like, "Well, I'm not currently setting the house on fire." Yes, but the house is already on fire. That's actually a really good analogy, because you only have to do a little bit to help set the house on fire, but the house will continue to be on fire and get worse even after you've stopped putting fire on it.
Like, I stopped putting the house on fire 30 minutes ago, but it kept on burning.
It kept going. I'm the victim. I'm the victim here. Like, it's just this grand fire conspiracy.
She's a feminist arsonist.
Yes. The SAT test. I love doing that. All right.
Agree or disagree on
Right.
that should bring together left and right to protect our Constitution. We're absolutely moving into what I call step 10. I wrote a book in which I pointed out there were
the erasure of the Constitution. What are you talking about?
Not all fires.
Hashtag not all fires. Her side, the people that she's voted into office, have been openly advocating the removal of our Constitution. And in California, they've actually tried to remove civil liberty protections. I mean, I can't believe that she was now acting as though she is some great defender of the Constitution when she's been actively trying to destroy it. Fucking sit down. Let us talk. You should shut up and listen.
Yeah. We'll definitely get more into that when we get to where she's talking about her book, because her book is absolutely ridiculous in the context of this.
10 steps that would-be tyrants always take when they want to close moving into what I call step 10. I wrote a book in which I pointed out there were 10 steps that would-be tyrants always take when they want to close down a democracy, whether they're on the left or the right. They always do the same 10 things. And now we're at something I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. You described it really, really well. It is step 10, and that's the suspension of the rule of law. That's when you start to be a police state, and we're here. There's no way around it.
So she wrote a book about tyrants. She released it within the last year. And in her own words, in that book, she wrote that there's 10 steps or 10 warning signs on the road to a tyranny, to a fascist, authoritarian, whatever you want to call it, state. And she's now saying that 3 months, no, 1 month. Yeah, 1 month into because Biden was inaugurated about 30 days ago, 1 month into the Biden presidency, and we're already at step 10 of the tyranny.
That was quick.
Like, so my question is, like, at what point in time did the previous 9 steps go through? Like, did she just miss them? Like, where was she? Where were her interviews when we were on step 9 or step 8 or step 3? Like, she wrote a book about identifying the warning signs of tyranny, and somehow she missed, while she was releasing that book, she missed all of the signs of tyranny that we were going through. And all of a sudden we got to step 10 and she's like, oh crap, are we in that tyranny thing I just wrote about?
The problem is she probably was okay with all those other limiting of rights, all those steps towards tyranny. She was okay with them until they were going to affect her. That's the problem.
Yeah. Where was she at with the small businesses or gun rights or speech rights or deplatforming?
They weren't her small businesses being burned down.
Yeah.
It wasn't her being pulled out of her vehicle and beat to death. It wasn't her getting shot in the street. It wasn't her being silenced on social media or being demonized in the mainstream media. It wasn't her being beat down for the last so many years. So it wasn't a problem. But now she's mildly inconvenienced in comparison to...
And we're on step 10 already.
Yeah, we're step 10. Now it's a problem because it affects you.
Yeah.
You're a selfish bitch.
Yes.
And no one gives a fuck about your opinion.
Step 10 on the road to tyranny is feminists being inconvenienced. No, but so...
Yes.
I mean, so this is where I'm saying the sit down, shut up thing. So she actually... I mean, this is like one of the most incredible, somebody in chat just mentioned it, the most incredible example of zero self-awareness I've ever seen. Writing a book about the signs of tyranny and then realizing after you've written and published the book, very shortly after, you realize, oh, wow, we've been going through all of these signs I was writing about, and I didn't even notice until we got to the last stage. And now we're in tyranny. The sit down, shut up part should be her saying, I've decided that I'm an idiot. I am no longer going to be supporting the left. I did just write a book, but now I realize I had no idea what I was talking about because I completely missed all of the signs, which heavily implies that my book is of zero value. Especially, it's a book about the warning signs of tyranny is really, really useless if we're already at stage 10. Maybe she should have wrote a book about how to get out of it. She should pull her book. Like, she should say, I'm going to stop publishing my book. Now, I'm not saying deplatform her. I'm just saying her, as a person, having self-awareness, should realize that she's such an idiot and so unself-aware and so unaware of what's going on around her. She has no situational awareness that she should say, you know what? I just wrote a book about being situationally aware, and I realized I don't know anything about being situationally aware. And so instead of ripping people off and having them buy my book, I'm going to do the single morally integral thing I've ever done in my life and remove my book from sale because it clearly is of no value.
Unlike with the left, we are not afraid of the contents of the book. We're not saying that she shouldn't have the book published. We're just saying that in light of how wrong she's been her entire life and how stupid she now must, if she's being intellectually honest, realizing how stupid she is and was, that she should have the moral fortitude to say, you know what, maybe I'm not the one who should be telling people what is reality, when I have not known what reality was until this month. Maybe I should be writing a book about the reality of our current politics. Maybe I should do more time listening to people who've been right for years and who I have actively tried to destroy, who I've demonized, who I've helped oppress. Maybe I should listen to them because they were right, I was wrong, and I'm going to do the right thing for, like, the moral thing of not trying to say that I know everything and take back that book. But if she wants to leave it out there, you know what? I'm happy if the book's out there because this is something we can show. Look how stupid she is. We can use her own material to say, this is why we should not listen to leftist walkaways.
Yes.
I'm not scared of the contents. She can leave it out if she wants. But if she wants to be morally right on her own, she should decide to take it back because she's ripping people off.
Voracious Blackston. No, but she has all the answers. Well, of course she does. She's a lady. I want to just before we move on, I want to just reiterate. I don't have any problem with Tucker having her on. Me thinking that she's an idiot isn't a reflection on Tucker. And I do forgive Tucker for not ripping into her the way that we are, because Tucker needs to have, if he rips a guest apart like that, like she's not going to have any more guests.
His show probably would not continue.
Yeah. So I understand that. And that's not to say that there's different commentators have different roles, right? So Dyer and I have the luxury of being able to rip people apart a little more aggressively than what Tucker does. And then the trade-off is that Tucker has a really big audience. So there's different areas. There's different kind of areas, and people have kind of different responsibilities within the commentary. So I that's fine. Tucker is kind of like the zoo. He's showing us the zoo of liberals who have left the left. And, it's like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Or like, I didn't really like that, but I guess thank you for showing me, Tucker. So I don't have there's no qualms with Tucker here. But somebody somewhere needs to put her in her place.
Thanks, Shaman King. Thanks.
It's not dead. It's just not growing. We've maintained a very consistent level of viewership for a very long time. It just hasn't grown.
You guys keep coming back. I don't know why.
I'm so embarrassed. And it's another example, there are a million of them, of why partisanship is stupid, and it makes you stupid. And I guess I just assumed that we wouldn't agree on stuff, so I didn't read your tweets, and I obviously should have been, and I missed a lot. And so, again, it's nice to remember you should treat people as individuals rather than as stand-ins for whole political parties. For a long time, you just said,
yes,
why don't you think
a terrible person?
Yes.
I'm not saying that because of
aren't seeing this.
I'm saying that she individually is a terrible person.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people are seeing it, but we're not unified, and as you pointed out, we're a very divided country for a lot of cynical reasons. I'm in touch with many patriots from all backgrounds and all walks of life who are horrified. I interviewed, for instance, Moms for Liberty, a group of conservative moms in Florida who are mobilizing to try to get schools open. They're so worried about what's happening to their kids. And I talked to Mom Jen Say, a famous gymnast and activist in San Francisco on the left, who's also a mom who's horrified. I've interviewed doctors, I've interviewed, ordinary people, restaurant owners from all walks of life who are absolutely unable to even articulate their fear and horror, recognizing that the state has now crushed businesses, kept us from gathering in free assembly to worship, as the First Amendment provides, is invading our bodies, as you mentioned, which is a violation of the Fourth Amendment, is restricting movement, fining us here in New York State. I could be fined $15,000 a day if I gather people, more than 10 or 25 people, depending on where in New York State I live, which is a complete violation of the First.
So Dyer, which side has been advocating against big government, against government overreach, against regulations, against infringements of the Bill of Rights? Which side's been doing that?
The conservatives.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. I forget sometimes because I was born fucking yesterday, like Naomi was. There's a common thing on the left. They'll apply it to their own, just perpetuating leftist narratives. They'll do it, but even when they walk away, they'll still use the same leftist tactics. And the one that she's using is that the world began spinning yesterday. This is actually a as a tropey as it is, Orwell knew what he was talking about. But there is this idea of the perpetual now, and we'll slaughter the quote if I ever try to do it. So you guys probably know which quote I'm talking about. But the idea was that there is no history, there is no future, there's only now. And the left will do this all the time. Joe Biden will misspeak and, it's okay. Well, it doesn't matter. That was in the past. Or, Joe Biden will say, well, we didn't have the vaccine when he got into office. And the media is not really going to care. They're not going to fact check. There's no history. It doesn't really matter. It's just only now. It doesn't matter that, 6 months ago, Naomi was probably supporting Democrats that were, and that she lives in New York. She probably funded many campaigns for the people that are doing that stuff. It doesn't really matter. It's just the world started spinning now. And it doesn't matter that we've been seeing these patterns for weeks, months, years, decades. No, it's just, it just started just now. We see this a lot with the walkaways where the one I'm remembering in particular is Brett Weinstein, who was the kind of target of my ire during that segment I did over the summer. Talking about the walkaways, but he was saying that when he was canceled in 2017, that the kind of the liberal madness on campus he had only noticed it starting up a few months beforehand, and he was kind of pretending, and it was either pretending or again a complete lack of self-awareness, which is something that's very habitual on the left, is that they all seem to lack self-awareness. Brett. The crazy liberal leftist culture on campus started way before 2017. We had this with the walkaways who, during the 2016 election, when they did all their funny business with Bernie, a lot of them were like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize it was this bad. Like it's just now that the Democrats are getting that bad. And then all throughout the Trump years, when the Democrats would do something, you'd have some of the walkaways would kind of peel off the party to say like, oh man, like they just got really bad under Trump. And it's like, no. They've always been bad. It's not a thing that's just happened. They've gotten more power, but their aims, their goals, their philosophy has been the same for a very, very long time. But it's the perpetual now. Naomi doesn't need to really worry about the history. There is no history. It's only now. The Democrats, the walkaways, they don't need to worry about how they contributed to, decades of the left gaining power and being able to perpetuate and have power under their ideology. No. It's just up till now. They don't need to worry about any of that stuff. You don't need to worry about that, the vaccine was actually developed under Trump. We don't need to worry about that. The whole time that Cuomo was murdering old people, his brother on CNN, Chris Cuomo, was doing prop comedy with him on primetime, and we were getting called Nazis for having pointed out that like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be sending sick people into nursing homes. No, there's no reason to remember that. It's just the ever present now. And so that's what she's doing right now. It's just, well, this stuff just happened. It's recent. The left was good. They were good boys a few months ago. It's only now. It's only now that they're bad boys.
Yeah.
First Amendment. I mean, the violations go on and on and on. I've talked to restaurant owners who are looking at a sector in which tens of thousands of small businesses have been crushed. And why were they crushed? Not because a pandemic forced them to. There is no real science underlying a lot of these closures. It's because autocratic tyrants at the state and now the national level are creating a kind of merger of corporate power and government power, which is really characteristic of Italian fascism in the 1920s. And they're using.
Man, she just swallowed like so many red pills like before she went on the show. Being able to openly talk about Italian style fascism, like if only we had that luxury. Like she's not wrong. And again, the walkaways, it's not that they're wrong. It's that they're the cause of what ails us. They did it up until very recently. And unlike them, I do remember. Now, again, that's not to say that they're unwelcome or that we have to, do other things with them. That's what they would do with us. That's what they think, that there is no... And it doesn't even matter if you're on the left or the right. Just if you have the wrong skin color, you're irredeemable, you're deplorable. And a lot of them are talking about, very seriously, you've got sitting U.S. representatives right now on the left talking openly about camps, re-education camps. You have a lot of their activists on the grounds talking about what they want to do in those camps, including walls. Now, what are Diane and I talking about? She advocated
for those people getting into office, so she's supporting those things.
Yeah. Now what are we calling for? Now, I said she needs to sit down, shut up, and listen. Now, maybe when I say listen, maybe you're like, well, are you talking about re-education? No. I just said listen. I think our ideas stand on their own. What I want her to do is, again, sit down, shut up, and listen to conservative philosophy. Again, she is new to this. She's new to leaving the left. She doesn't really have anything of value to bring us. We know what they're about.
You wouldn't want to have a 16-year-old leading our political movement, would you? Oh shoot, that'd be Thunberg, wouldn't
it? And there's been a lot of studies on this too. So I can't remember which group did it, but it was a recent study. I think it was in 2017. That conservatives and people more on the right-leaning side of the spectrum will tend to consume like a 60-30 diet of 60% conservative stuff, 30% liberal stuff, whereas liberals will consume basically exclusively liberal sources. The other thing is, on the right, a lot of our commentary on the right is analyzing leftist sources. On the left, they aren't analyzing right-wing sources. You're not going to have a CNN article breaking down a Crowder video. Now, they might be calling for his deplatforming and saying things that he didn't do, but they're not going to actually analyze the substance of his video. Whereas we'll go through an article. We'll go through like the Time article and say, okay, let's go through this kind of paragraph by paragraph and see what's going on here. So usually by just virtue of being on the right, if you're consuming commentary, you're getting both sides of it. Now, maybe maybe we're analyzing it in a biased way, but that's up for you to decide because you can see what the source is. So for her, I can't remember exactly where I was going with this, but Dyer, you want to rescue me here while I collect myself?
Here's another reason why you shouldn't believe the content of her book at face value, because I don't know if you know this, but she's written several books, and I know of one book that she published in 1991 that was it was called The Beauty Myth, and she's basically a fat or healthy at any size feminist. She was saying that was one of the books she wrote, and basically she was saying that your fat and your size does not equate to your health, when in reality we know that there's 52 direct diseases related directly to being overweight. And I remember that one of the things she said was that, in her defense of you can be healthy at any size, was saying, well, I mean, actually anorexia is more of a health crisis in America, because she says 150,000 people die from anorexia every single year in America. She said that in the book. That was one of her things she quoted. In reality, when we looked up the actual stats for anorexia and bulimia combined from the Anorexia and Bulimia Association newsletter, was where she sourced her information from, it says that there's 150,000 people who have struggled with anorexia and bulimia, and that 500 people die a year. So she can't do basic research for something that she is supposed to be an expert in. So now that she can't do an accurate book on what she has been doing for years, right? So why should we believe that she can do an accurate book on something she's believed for a month?
I know where I was going with it. So I agree with you. That fits in with what my point was earlier. Is on the right, we see and understand what left-wing opinions are and what their quote-unquote wisdom is. The left, they aren't exposed to right-wing wisdom, because they have a, close the walls, batten down the hatches, cancel culture. You're not allowed to associate with anybody on the right. You're not allowed to listen to their stuff. You even got CNN now saying you shouldn't be watching Fox News, or you shouldn't be trying to go to other sources. You had the New York Times put out an article last weekend about critical thinking's not as good as you think it is. You shouldn't be going to extra sources that aren't mainstream media because they might confuse you. So the left actively prevents their adherents from seeing right-wing sources. The right actively seeks out left-wing sources because they're so funny to break down. So a person on the right, somebody from the left coming to us, they don't really have a lot of wisdom to give us that we don't already know. Any position Naomi's got, I know what her positions are, and I know why she has those positions. They're all irrational reasons, but I know why, because I've seen it, I've heard it. If she were to come to us and ask us, well, why do you support the Second Amendment? She has no idea why we do. She's never been, and I can say this probably pretty factual, she's probably never been exposed to those kinds of ideas or those kinds of arguments. She's never gone into researching them. The sources that she listens to probably don't break down our ideas or our reasons for that stuff. So the right has a lot of wisdom to give the left because they've never heard it before. The left doesn't really have a lot of wisdom. So the walkaways coming to the right, they don't really have a lot of wisdom to give us because we already know what all their arguments are. We already know what all their reasoning and what all their lack of, whatever their ideology is. We already know all of that because we spend time battling it, researching it, trying to figure it out, all that stuff. Whereas they actively try to avoid our side.
Yep. Moving on.
Using that to engage in kind of emergency orders that simply strip us of our rights to property, rights to assembly, rights to worship, and all of the rights that our Constitution guarantees. So people are definitely horrified and noticing. I think people are shocked and divided, as I mentioned before. And the other thing
that not to have the right to a job. I can't think of anything more tyrannical than that. So she's talking about people losing their businesses because of these emergency orders. She advocated for policies that would require businesses to have a certain number of females in their boards, which would mean that she's requiring someone be selected based on their gender, not by their actual merits, which would then keep someone out hypothetically from those jobs because of that had the merits, but because of their gender. So she's now upset that people are having things stripped away from them that they are their rights or something they've earned. Well, she's advocated for the same thing in a different form.
Well, because now she's not in charge, right? So there's been actually a lot of people have been receiving her the same way Dyer and I have, where they kind of been saying, okay, isn't it convenient for her to have switched positions now? She was, a top advisor. She's writes books all the time. She's, a big person in New York for, she's in the leftist culture and in the power structures, all that stuff. And then now all of a sudden it's starting to flip on her. And isn't it convenient? Well, now all of a sudden she's got the anecdote for the right. It's like, okay, well now we need to do it my way. We need to come together and do this, and this, and I really need people to wake up and start noticing how tyrannical the left is. Again, they only have been tyrannical for the last few months, so don't read too much into that. But I really need people to start doing that and maybe follow me. She would be fine with it, as Dyer just said. She's perfectly fine with putting crippling regulations onto small businesses when it's her idea and she's in charge of it. When it's not her idea and she doesn't happen to be in charge of it, all of a sudden it's like, whoa. We can't have a tyrant. If I'm not the tyrant, no one can be the tyrant, God damn it.
I didn't agree with not being the tyrant.
Yeah.
Said this has all been very sudden.
Well, which actually, Dyer, another thing too. So this gets into a principles argument. So if it fits with what she wants, with her personal goals, which is feminism, then she's perfectly fine with putting crippling regulation onto a small business. But if it's not something that's within her goals, then she doesn't want it. Whereas you and I have you ever advocated for a regulation that would cripple a small business?
No, never.
I've not either. Have you spent any part of your career working towards that? I'm assuming no also, but I've also, again, what were you doing the last decade? You in the audience too. What were you doing in the last decade? Have you ever in the last decade advocated for or suggested a policy that would cripple small businesses with that because it would fit with a personal goal that you had? Or on the right, do we have a consistent principle of limited government, non-interventionist government, and capitalism and free market stuff?
Yes, I have never done that.
Yeah. So it's a little rich coming from her.
Yes.
And when you look back, March of 2020.
When you on the Fox News scroller, when it says the Shiite militia, it really, the font, it makes it look like it says Shiite militia.
They are though.
A lot of things started to move that kind of locked into place a set of policies that are kind of 360-degree full-on totalitarian policies. So I think a lot of us are kind of in culture shock. Luckily or unluckily, I've been studying closing democracies for 12 years. So I recognized early on, once I realized New York State.
I know this is not what she meant, but she's been has she been researching how to close a democracy for that many years?
She's been researching closing democracies, like democracies that are closing. I don't think I mean, I suppose as a byproduct, she would know how to jumpstart that process. I think she's just studying the process.
Just checking.
Yeah, you wonder too. I wonder which ones she was looking at and what she thought of what was going on in America for the last 12 years. I mean, certainly we had 4 years of Trump. I wish it was 8 years. Damn it. That was a Freudian slip to end them all. We had 4 years of Trump out of that last 12, but I wonder what she thought about the first 8 of her 12 years. If she's going back 12 years, then the first 8 years of her research would have been under Obama Biden. So did she think that democracy was closing out then, or not? Is it only Biden? I find it hard to believe. I think I know a little bit about how a tyranny gets started as well, and I seem to think that it doesn't take 3 weeks in a cold year. I don't think that Joe Biden, as bad as he is, as bad as his ideas are, I don't think that he's been able to jumpstart tyranny in the last 4 weeks. I seem to think
part of this is I think that she probably started writing this book months ago, expecting it to be about Trump.
Oh, you know it. That's such a good take. That is absolutely a good take. Yeah, she did. That's a very, very good observation. Direwolf, everybody. We'll be ending the show while he's ahead now. And
I won the points.
Yay! No, that's a fantastic point. I bet you're absolutely correct. I guarantee you. I absolutely know you're correct. If Trump had won, this book would have come out, and it would have been all about Trump. She would have been on CNN. She'd have been on CNN having an interview about her book, and it would have been in reference to Trump.
Yeah, and here's what I think is she was going to do a press run, no matter who won, and who it was about, who she was going to be saying was the tyrant, was just based on who won.
It's a good grift.
She doesn't care. This is all a grift. It's all for her to enrich herself. She has no fucking principles, and this is why we shouldn't be listening to her for any kind of principled position.
So another thing too, similar to Tim Pool, is she has gotten fabulously wealthy off of her career of propping up the establishment, creating. I mean, her being the quote unquote founder of third wave feminism. I mean, that's a pretty big brick in the establishment wall there. She has gotten fantastically wealthy creating the monsters destroying the country right now. All of this awful ideology, the entrenched deep state, the merger of the. I mean, what do you think was the catalyst to merge the corporation and the state into an Italian-style fascism? It was the social politics. It was the gender ideology, the racial ideology. It was all the SJW stuff. Feminism was a big primer to that, because that's what ran through the corporations first was the feminism thing. So she wants to talk about Italian-style fascism. I mean, maybe she should reconsider what her role was in jumpstarting that and giving them the tools. It is the SJW policies that is being used to do that merger between state and corporation. Between state and corporation. It's just... But now, I mean, if New York really does get bad, she's got the opportunity to leave, and she's got enough money to leave and go buy a house somewhere else. She can go buy up 1,000 acres of land next to, in a state near you, and then she'll probably vote her way too. But a lot of the other people in New York, they don't got that luxury. I do happen to live in a relatively decent area. It could be better, but if all of a sudden, like the policies were to start going too crazy, I don't got enough money to just up and leave. I've got a real job I got to stay at. I didn't make a couple $1 million writing books about feminism and advising the Clintons on how to do allegedly feminist things with a cigar. It is just such a. I don't know what it is. I want to say it's karma, but it's like the opposite of karma, where the people who have done the worst things through doing the worst things have gained enough money and resources to escape the awful things that they've created.
She's completely insulated from the consequences of her own policies.
Yeah.
Had emergency powers. I know from history that no one gives up emergency powers willingly.
Right.
They always drag it on. And so every month I'm getting in my email an announcement that Governor Cuomo is extending emergency measures. Only from studying history do I know how predictable it is when you start to have elected officials say, we are not going to follow the Constitution because there's a pandemic. And I just want to say lastly, and then I promise I'll stop, nowhere in the Constitution does it say all this can be suspended if there's a bad disease. We have lived through typhus, cholera, smallpox, HIV, tuberculosis, polio, the Spanish flu. We've lived through an attack on our soil. Never have there been months and months and months of emergency powers when we weren't actually fighting a war. So
And again, we're not doing this. Hold on. Hold on. I'll go back and let you go. So we're not doing this because she's wrong now. Again, this is just she's just making these very basic observations. It's like the Democrats going after Andrew Cuomo in New York. They're not wrong for doing it. It's just they're late to the party. It's like, wow, you're just now realizing this.
If you had said something earlier, you could have saved some lives. Right?
Yeah, the Constitution, the Constitution doesn't get suspended just because there's a pandemic. Oh, you're just now realizing that.
Duh.
So it's not. We're not doing this because we're disagreeing with what she's saying. I'm just disagreeing with that. She thinks that she's some hot shit because she just figured all this stuff out, and she wants all of you to listen to her and be like, "Hey, I just figured out this crazy thing." It's like, no. We figured out this crazy thing like a couple of years ago. You're very late to the party.
You guys realize that murder was bad?
Yeah,
I just found it out. And I'm going to tell everyone about it.
Yeah, it's not. You're not. There's no prizes for second place in this. It is just once somebody's already said it, she's parroting things that everybody on the right was basically universally saying since May. And then now all of a sudden she's just discovered it almost a year later. That's not an admirable academic discovery. She's not super smart for figuring it out. It's the bare minimum that you can do. All right, I'll roll it back a little bit and I'll let Dyer jump in.
I want to point out that she said that we weren't even at war. Actually, we were at war. A war being fought at the behest of a few government, military leaders who were lying to the president and lying to the entire country and fighting their own little personal war to enrich the military-industrial complex. That was going on, and that was people in your party doing it.
So, kind of an aside here. I don't know if I should save it. We got another 30 seconds, and I'll bring up what I want to say.
have there been months and months and months of emergency powers when we weren't actually fighting a war? So this is completely unprecedented. Lockdowns have never been done before in free societies, and really we're turning into a version of a totalitarian state sort of before everyone's eyes. And I really hope we wake up quickly, because history also shows that it's a small window in which people can fight back before it's too dangerous to fight back.
I mean, she is brushed up against some terms that, like, if Dyer and I were to say some of that stuff, that, like, fight back, you're running out of time if you don't fight back now against tyranny. I mean, that kind of rhetoric's a little spicy for even what we're doing right now. I would say, if we were talking about that in the show notes before the show, we would have a conversation about, is that too inflammatory? Especially with the current environment and all the stuff that's going on this month. I mean, but she just gets to say it because, she just figured all this stuff out. I guess in a way, being such a nascent, woke, awake red pill, she's a little more free to say what she's feeling without a filter. I wish we had that kind of freedom.
Man, I'm starting to think that we're being divided as a country precisely so we don't have conversations like this. And I hope you will come back. Naomi Wolf, what a pleasure. What an eye-opening.
I'll push back and talk
pleasure it was to talk to you.
Because that was not a conversation. That was Naomi saying that she recently, in the last month, rediscovered all of these things that conservatives have known for at least 12 months. That's not really a conversation. That's a book report.
Yeah. I would love for him to say, where were you the last 4 years?
Yeah. So other thing I was thinking about while she was talking about the pandemic, and it kind of reminded me of how the 10 steps to tyranny, and we've blasted through it in 4 weeks apparently. Did you hear this report that COVID's down 70%? The confirmed cases. So we've been hearing this. It's amazing. Biden takes office, and right away, within 3 weeks, the confirmed cases drop by 70%. And I'm seeming to think that probably I would like to know when that 70% is relative to, and I'm guessing that the way down. I don't think that was just a immediate drop off. I'm guessing there was a bit of a slope to get down to 70% reduction in case count, and I'm betting that the start of that curve goes back into I don't know, before January 20th, maybe back before November 3rd, maybe back a little further than that. I'm guessing that the bulk of that downward curve, which is probably something we'll do some more research for next Saturday, but just on a hunch, I keep hearing the 70% thrown around, and they're trying to what I think happened, just to kind of give away the game here. I think that they were sandbagging the numbers while Trump was still in office, and then as soon as they're putting their thumb on the scale there, keeping the numbers high, and then as soon as Biden took office, then they could start releasing the real numbers that were actually in decline, because then it makes Biden look good. I do not believe for a second that over the course of 3 weeks we dropped by 70%. You're talking about something where you had 10 people being infected, and now we're down to 3 people being infected. Now that's going to happen over time, but it's not going to happen over 3 weeks. I think the more likely timeline for that is going to be 3 to 6 months. But that's something that we'll do a little more research for by Saturday.
Hypothetically, if it were true, those are true numbers, you'd have to also link it up to something that Biden has actually done that would have resulted in that.
Right.
If he hasn't done anything, it would have.
Yeah, so it would have to be linked to the vaccine, which
those vaccines were ordered by Trump.
Yes, and the vaccine has some leg to it to when it's actually effective. So if you get it put in your arm today, you're not going to hit full immunity for about a week. I think that's the approximate number. I think it's plus or minus a few days. So realistically, if you were to, for whatever reason, which I think would be ridiculous to count it like this, but if you were to decide that on at noon on January 20th, all the vaccines that were put into people's arms, that was all done by Biden, and all the ones before that were done by Trump. Well, then if in the last 3 weeks, because there's some lag in the CDC numbers. And in the last 3 weeks, we had a 70% drop. Well, Biden can only take credit for 2 of those weeks. So I would seem to think that a lot of that is that's on Trump. Trump gets to take responsibility for that big drop. But, it's, math and science, probably racist.
But that's also not how it worked, because the vaccine that was available and being distributed during the first month of Biden were all ordered, and the logistics for them was organized by the Trump admin and the states who had organized them prior to Biden.
No. They said that there was no plan and that there was no vaccines.
But that wasn't true.
The vaccine didn't even exist when Biden took office, Dyer.
But it did, and all Biden did was...
You're like, but reality. I know, it's so inconvenient, isn't it?
Biden is saying that he was going to order them, start more doses in April, when the current contract that Trump put in place that ended in April would expire. So all he did was re-up Trump's current plan in April. We're in February.
And simultaneously, you have, so you guys are about to see this really, really crazy doublespeak. We're already seeing it this week, but I think that it's going to get really wild the next couple of weeks here. So last week, we had this report that COVID infections are dropping by 70%, which apparently, I guess that's good for Biden. But you also had over the weekend, Fauci said that we could be masking deep into 22. So you're going to have this dual narrative of the virus is going down under, the virus is dropping under Biden because, Biden man good. But also the virus is still so bad that you need to keep all of the control with the Democrats, and we need to keep the bailouts going and all that stuff. So you're going to see this dual narrative where at the same time as the virus is getting better under Biden, it's also as bad as it's ever been, and you need to let the Democrats keep control.
Yep. So what's the one thing we learned about walkaways?
They are extremely unself-aware, and they have no wisdom to offer the right.
And they are inherently dangerous to themselves and everyone else, because just as easily as they turned on the left because it started to be not, in their best interest, they will turn on the right. If they do not learn the actual principles and ideals, they will turn on the right as soon as it is no longer advantageous for them as well. Mm-hmm. They are selfish, not principled. And that's why they're dangerous.
Yeah. 6 months ago, she's a feminist and buy her book. And then now she realized that the left is bad and also buy her book. It's not real. Again, there's nothing of value that they can bring us. It's a giant grift. It is self-interest. And they're dangerous. They created a lot of these leftists that walked away. A lot of them spent the last decade creating the Leviathan that is coming for us all. Again, think about what you did the last decade. And again, that's not to say I think the big closeout too is just they are welcome to walk away, but they are also welcome to, when they come over to our side, is to shut their fucking mouths, sit down, and listen. They are new to this. We have a lot of wisdom to give them because they've probably never heard right-wing talking points before, or arguments, or philosophy, or any of that, because their side inherently isolates them from that. They don't have anything of value to add to us because we already investigate all that stuff. So that's the big thing.
And hopefully, it's the best thing. It's the best thing for them too, because if they sit down and listen, they might actually develop some principles.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's it for today's show. We'll see you guys on Saturday. Thank you very much for this impromptu show. Fox, you were awesome. We'll see you guys later. Dire Wolf.